Este programa es de clasificación E, entretenimiento. A, apto para todo público.
Never miss another fabulous cultural event in Cotacachi just because you can't speak Spanish. In other words, tells you what you need to know about life in Cotacachi and Imbabura. And here is our host, Diego Vélez.
Welcome to Another Words. We have another great program today. It's raining outside. Everything's good in Cotacachi. Life is good. You know, the crops are growing. El choclo, las habas, las papas. What else do you want? ¿Qué más quieres? So we have a good show today. So come on back. We're going to have a new feature today. It's really exciting. And a really nice interview with psychologist Helen and some really cool music. So stay tuned.
Find out about the local events in Cotacachi before they happen on What's Going On.
Well, first of all, what's going on is there was going to be a concert tonight at 8 p.m. in the Teatro Municipio in the, skateboard park, Parque Ornamental or Parque de los Niños or Jóvenes. Anyway, that's been canceled this Friday, tonight at 8. So next Friday, the Hijos del Sol concert will be rescheduled. So don't miss it, and we'll be talking more about that, but that's next Friday. And just wanted to mention we had a really nice meeting with the mayoral candidate, Auki Tituana, last week, and they're having one right now. So stay tuned. So let's go to the new feature, and I want to thank our engineer Macy for pulling together some important news items that's happening in Ecuador. So first of all, in Quito yesterday, there was a protest over the transportation law, and the taxi drivers are protesting a possible increase in the number of taxis. Drivers crawled through major roads, blocking traffic, shutting down streets. I guess this is just in Pichincha and Quito, And so there's so many taxis that people say that 90% of the cars in Quito are taxis. It could be possible. So the Secretary of Mobility was not meeting with the taxi cooperativa or telling them the news on taxi quotas. So they were kind of mad about that. And the mayor of Quito offered to do a study on whether the city needs more taxis. That's what we need, more cars. That's combined with the threat of implementing the law. And plus, it's illegal to block roads, even though they did it last time. It led the taxi cooperative to cancel the strike they had scheduled for today. So I guess yesterday there was a strike, today it was canceled. So Quien sabe? So stay tuned, and all things were moving in Cotacachi, so that was good. So we'll see what happens. So next up, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro raised the minimum wage 150%. So wow, if they were getting $150, so 150% would be double that plus another half, right? So that's up to, that's Ecuadorian math for me. The sixth wage adjustment of the year in an attempt to combat inflation. 3 months after, there was a 3,400 salary increase. 3,400% salary increase. Wow, do the math on that. So I don't even know what that comes out to. Which brought monthly wages to 4,500 bolivars. Venezuela inflation rate is currently valued above 800,000. What? Is that even possible? 800,000%. Leaving almost 90% of the population in poverty. Therefore, if you go to the Colombian border, where I was a few weeks ago, people are pouring through, coming with maletas or luggage, kids, children, women. They're all streaming out of Venezuela, through Ecuador, into somewhere else, because it's horrible. So maybe they'll go back if things get better. And on the next note, last Friday, Ecuador officials said that the influx of Venezuelan migrants will cost the country $550 million, mostly in health and education and other services. So that's a lot of money, and that's dollars. That's not bolivars. And this week, on a sunnier note, archaeologists announced the discovery of 3 burials in Atahualpa Canton, dating back almost 6,000 to 10,000 years. They're the oldest remains found in Ecuador. They're even older than me, so that's pretty old. Wow. So that's news from Ecuador. Gracias. Comes our first song.
historia de una niña que nació del volcán, que nació del volcán. No le tiene miedo a nada, no. Apenas aprendí a caminar, me dejaron solita en la cascada. Mis piernas, yo me hundo en el musgo, voy nadando en la tierra, voy juntando mis raíces, se me juntan los brazos, las piernas, los hombros, los ojos, la nariz, la lengua, las sienes, el cráneo, en la nuca la siento, no me toques la rodilla. No me pises las plantas, no me toques el párpado. Apenas aprendí a caminar, me dejaron solita en la cascada.
For a rainy day, that's Colibri. Is that right, Macy? Colibri, and I want to thank Helen Wafers for giving me these great song suggestions because they're just dynamic. Wait till you see some of the other ones. So we're in for a big treat. We got feedback. What is that? It's the rain. So we want to introduce Helen Wafers is a psychologist from Germany. Don't ask me to pronounce the name of the town in Germany, but she'll tell you. And basically, she was here for almost 2 years doing a study along with her colleagues, students that were studying their bachelor's and for their master's. She's doing her PhD work, and they're basically looking at child rearing practices of indigenous communities in Ecuador, Otavalo, Cotacachi, and comparing them and doing a lateral study with communities in Germany. And not, really seeing who was better or worse, just looking at it. And so, they're compiling all the data, and this is part 1 of our interview with Helen. Come back after the break, and we'll have part 2 and more cool music.
Listen to the special people who define Cotacachi here on Something to Talk About.
So we're back with, in other words, and we're asking Helen Wafers, what brought you to Ecuador, to Cotacachi years ago, Helen?
Well, I first got here as a volunteer when I was 18 or 19 years old, and back then I spent a year in Intac, which is in the same canton, digamos. I worked as a volunteer, one could say. I really liked it here. It really inspired me. I learned a lot, and I stayed connected. And afterwards, I started to study psychology, and I was always interested in the topic of, culture. So when I decided to do my PhD in developmental psychology, I came back to Ecuador and wanted to see whether we could do the project in the communities around, or indigenous communities around Otavalo and Cotacachi. Why? Because I didn't really know the indigenous culture, because in Intac I got more in touch with mestizos, and because I had friends in Cotacachi, and it's always easier to organize a project when you have friends around. So it was both like my interest in the indigenous culture and the fact that I was already kind of connected or felt kind of at home here.
So people already knew you, and you could navigate the landscape easier because you knew people here. That's what.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah, that's true.
So let me ask you this. So you're talking about this study that you've been doing now for, how long have you been doing this? For 2 years?
1.5 years, more or less, yeah.
Part of it is for your PhD. And so I met some of your colleagues, and I'm interested in what is it you've done so far? Because it seems like you're almost finishing up. And what are some of the findings that you've learned? Because you were comparing two cultures, weren't you? You were comparing the indigenous culture and development, and also in the German society or German town where you're from, right?
Yeah, we are doing the project here as well in Germany, in Münster, which is the city where I'm from and where I'm doing my PhD. So it's a city of like 200,000 people in Germany and like indigenous communities around here. Right now we are just finishing the data collection, let's say.
Right.
We cannot say a lot about like results because we need to analyze the data that we collected. Until now we were more concerned, or we were more busy with the project itself.
Just getting it running and keeping it functioning, right?
That's what I was going to say. Do it in a good way, like the whole theme of reciprocity as well. As I said, I didn't really know the indigenous culture, so in the last year I talked to a couple of people, to Anita Graina, a professor at Flaxo in Quito, and with friends around here. And so it was a whole thing of how can you do a data collection in indigenous communities in Ecuador, and how can you do that if you or if me myself will not be around. I left last year in September and left my students here, and they did data collection with students from Otavalo and my students from Germany. And the question was, how can we do video recording of mother-child interaction or with indigenous families? And it was not just one time that we were recording, but we did 12 visits with the families at their homes and did video recording there.
So let me get this straight. So you're observing their child rearing practices?
Yeah, we are observing. We are trying to learn more about how children around here grow up. Well, children is not the right term. Like we start at the week 7 after birth.
Oh, okay.
And so we were visiting families starting at that point in time, and then visiting like every week until the 4th month, more or less. So a lot of visits to the homes of those families, and that was the question that I was mostly concerned about. How can we do a good project around here, and how do we need to work in order to do good work and to be respectful?
Sure, not interfere with the way people are rearing their children. And so you're videotaping, and were you asking questions or just sort of watching?
No, we did 2 interviews with the mothers at week 7 after birth. One interview where we just try to understand like the circumstances or the context where the children grow up, like simple things like how many people live in your household, or what's your background, how many years did you go to school, or what do you work with, do you do agriculture, or what kind of work do you do? But also question about like daily routines, like what do you do every day? What is your daily routine? What is your weekly routine? And where is your child while you do those things? For example, how much time do you spend with your child alone, just interaction time? So there are different...
Playing or doing something, right?
Yeah, doing whatever. Where is your child? Is it like very close to your body, or is your child like in a separate place? Or how do your days look like?
Right.
So we try to understand how do children grow up, and what are their experiences right after birth.
Because I know in the United States, I'm not sure how child rearing is in Germany, that women generally go to work as soon as, the baby's able to be by itself, and they leave children in daycare centers or they stay at home with a nanny. What I've seen, friends of mine and others, was that the children are often left in a playpen, but what I've noticed here in indigenous women is the baby is strapped to their back. Wherever they go, whether they're picking corn or cooking or cleaning or just whatever they're doing, the baby is close to their body. And I think that's what you've noticed also too, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is a difference, or we do find this difference, that there seems to be more body contact here in the indigenous communities than in Germany. More.
But as a comparison, you didn't study mestizo culture here. You just studied the indigenous versus the German, right? Is that what you're studying, the German? Okay.
That's true. It would be interesting to study like families in Quito.
Right, in more urban places. And so tell me then, what are the communities that you visited? You said Tunibamba was one of them, I think?
There are different or a lot of communities, but for example around Cotacachi, Tunibamba, Piavachupa, El Cercado, and around Otavalo, a lot of communities like Etzi, Pucara, Alambuela. I'm not sure whether Alambuela is close to Otavalo, but San Pablo.
Okay.
But I think there were like 12 or more communities around Otavalo and Cotacachi.
That's interesting.
But actually, my students did that work, or the students from Otavalo. Yeah, I'm now coming back, but actually they were the people who had more contact to the indigenous families than me, which is interesting now because I'm much more I designed the project and left, and it was always in touch, but the students did the work.
They did the hard work, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think what's really cool is that when you were in Germany, because you told me you were gone for a year, you were back working and just living and kind of overseeing the project from a distance?
Yeah, well, we were running the project in Germany at the same time.
Oh, right.
So we were always in touch, with the research team here. And it was not just students, but two people who helped me out as research assistants, Nancy Isasimba and Marco Waninango, who were very, very important for the whole process. Without them, it would not have been possible to do this project. So we were always in touch and coordinating, but I was not here personally.
And how many people would you say were involved? Because I met some of the students here when they were here, but how would you say over the course of this project were people involved, local people and also German students?
In the research team?
Yes.
20 people.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
10 students came from Germany to Ecuador, to Cotacachi. Every one of those students stayed for about 3 months, and afterwards came another student, and 9 students from the University of Otavalo, and the research assistants. So overall 20 persons, I'd say.
That's amazing. Yeah, I got to meet some of them, and most of them are back home now.
Yeah, Vanessa is still here with me now. The others have already left, and I'm very thankful.
That's a lot of work. So that was part of their university classes that they were taking, so that was part of the commitment to come here and spend that time here, right? Because they were doing what we call the bachelor's, they were doing their university training.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them are doing the bachelor's in psychology, and others are doing the master's.
Oh, okay.
And it's for their master or bachelor thesis that they're doing it. A couple of them are also doing practicas. Internships, right? Yeah, research internships.
So then you would have been what they call their master teacher or their professor who's in charge of them. I get it. That's really cool.
And we are back with Diego Velez on In Other Words.
Welcome back. We had a little commercial break there, but we're still here. Haven't been washed away by the rain. And wanted to remind you that next Friday, not this Friday, will be the Hijos del Sol concert. Don't miss it. It's going to be really beautiful. 7 countries, dance, poetry, music. $6, starts at 8 o'clock. So that's next Friday in the Teatro Municipal, and it should be really, really good. And that's what I want to say, and introduce this next song, which is selected by Helen, our guest, Bomba Estero. This is called Sintiendo.
empezó a pensar en mí. Si te regalo los regalos que te he dado, la lágrimas que he derramado, las veces que me he quedado. Si yo supiera que todo lo que te he dado, esto es solo un puñado de lo que tengo guardado. Si te regalo los regalos que te he dado, la lágrimas que he derramado, las veces que me he quedado. Si yo supiera que todo lo que te he dado, esto es solo un puñado de lo que tengo guardado. Queriendo que todo lo que yo presiento se transforme en pensamiento, pase por buenos momentos y se quede siempre ahí. Sabiendo que todo lo que estoy haciendo sirve para dejar recuerdos impregnados en el tiempo y regalártelo a ti. Y regalártelo a ti. Si te regalo los regalos que te he dado, las lágrimas que he derramado, las veces que me he quedado. Si yo supiera que todo lo que te he dado, esto solo es un puñado de lo que tengo guardado. Si te regalo los regalos que te he dado, las lágrimas que he derramado, las veces que me he quedado. Si yo supiera que todo lo que te he dado, esto solo es un puñado de lo que tengo guardado. Sintiendo, queriendo, sonriendo, para regalártelo a ti. Para regalártelo a ti. Para regalártelo a ti. Para regalártelo a ti. Y aunque no me diga lo que estás sintiendo, esta noche vengo a dártelo a ti. Y aunque no me diga lo que estás sintiendo, esta noche vengo a dártelo a ti. Que me diga aunque no me diga lo que estás sintiendo, esta noche vengo a dártelo a ti. Que me diga aunque no me diga lo que estás sintiendo, esta noche vengo a dártelo a ti. Que me diga aunque no me diga lo que estás sintiendo, esta noche vengo a dártelo a ti.
Bomba estero, sintiendo. How rude, people calling you while on the radio. What's the matter with people? Anyway, that was Bomba Estero. And then next up, we're going to have part 2 of our interview with Helen Wafers. I just want to thank her for sitting down and talking to us, telling us all about her fascinating study, because, you know, she's really busy with all the number crunching and all those communities. I think it's wonderful. El Cercado, San Pablo, Tunibamba, and all over Otavalo that she was able to visit and interact with the local people. So it's 10 students from here and 10 students from Germany. So here's Helen Wafers, part 2. And we'll have some more music right after that.
Ahora en español o en...
Sí, en español si quieres.
Bueno, sobre todo, tal vez falta explicar que el proyecto no tiene nada que ver con juzgar cuál sería la mejor forma de criar a un hijo. No tiene nada que ver con eso, sino de entender o de observar cómo crecen los niños en distintas partes del mundo. Y sobre todo nos hemos dado cuenta de que, bueno, los conocimientos que tenemos sobre el desarrollo infantil, como estos conocimientos son basados en estudios que más que nada los han realizado en países de los Estados Unidos y Europa. Así que hace falta realizar como estudios en los pueblos andinos, ya que no podemos generalizar los resultados obtenidos en otros lugares del mundo. Así que para entender mejor cómo crecen los niños es importante hacer este tipo de observación también en los pueblos andinos como este.
Porque depende, ¿no? Donde estás, entonces te adaptas donde estás. Si estás en Alemania, la cultura, la enseñanza es la manera que la gente desarrolla a los niños es de una manera, y aquí es otra manera, los mestizos es de otra manera, ¿no?
Bueno, la cosa es que siempre vamos a ver ver semejanzas y también diferencias. Hay ambas cosas.
Para traducir lo que dijiste, so basically Helen, I think, is saying is that you can't generalize, and it's not really a thing about comparing or trying to find out what's the best practices. It's really just looking at what people are doing in Germany, in the town where she lives, which is 200,000 people, and then looking at the indigenous cultures here and just seeing what they learn about the way people are raising their children. It's not about valuing one over the other or trying to find what is the best. That wasn't part of the judging of who's doing the best job. So really it was just in describing and trying to do a study about how things are done and that each culture adapts to what the way they're doing it. And I think it's really interesting because Helen not only speaks excellent German, which I don't speak, but she speaks really great English and really great Spanish. So I just want to thank her for telling us in Spanish. Eso es lo que importa, ¿no? Es que vos estabas en las comunidades, en como persona, ser humana, me parece que te daría mucho gusto estar ahí con las personas, ¿no? Con las madres, con los niños y observar, ¿no? Porque estás viendo cosas, me parece que son increíbles, ¿no? Cosas diferentes que la gente no ve porque no entramos a las casas para ver esas cosas, ¿no?
Bueno, y ahora, como dije, sobre todo eso es un aporte a la ciencia, pero también sí se puede decir que lo importante en ambos sitios donde estamos realizando el proyecto es la interacción entre, bueno, los niños recién nacidos o, bueno, los niños y las personas más cercanas a los niños, a los hijos. Y vemos que, por ejemplo, los abuelos tienen un rol muy importante en esta cultura en cuanto a la crianza de los hijos, y puede ser que es un rol todavía más importante que en Alemania. Y bueno, vemos que lo importante va a ser fortalecer la relación o la interacción entre la madre y el hijo, porque por medio de esta relación o por la forma en la que la mamá se relacione con su hijo, el hijo está aprendiendo a sentir, a pensar, a actuar. Creo que lo tengan en común todas las culturas, de que desde la primera relación nace todo el desarrollo como infantil o el desarrollo humano.
Perdón, cuando hablas de los abuelos, ¿es la abuela y el abuelo o ambas o solo uno?
Creo que sobre todo que sí es la abuela que está ayudando a criar a los hijos, pero eso no es como un resultado que parece muy nuevo, pero uno puede preguntar a cualquier persona de una comunidad indígena.
Se ve eso, ¿no?
Sí, se ve.
Por ejemplo, en mi caso, mi abuela estaba ahí en la casa, vivía con nosotros, la mamá de mi papá. Entonces ella siempre estaba ahí ayudando a cocinar, a cuidarnos, y no somos indígenas, pero es parte de esa cultura también, que la abuelita vive con la familia, ¿no? Y no sé cómo es en Alemania, porque me parece, porque las familias viven cerca, ¿no? O sea, tu abuelita tal vez vivía en otra casa, pero venía a la casa a ayudar, a estar ahí, y siempre le veías, ¿no? Muy interesante. ¿Y qué más me cuentas sobre eso, lo que has visto y lo que te diste cuenta, como dicen? Cuéntame sobre eso, qué has observado y qué has encontrado, cosas tal vez que te sorprendiste, ¿no?
Me he dado cuenta de que es súper importante no solamente traer como conocimientos occidentales para enseñar de cómo hay que criar a niños, sino que sí hay una riqueza cultural en estas familias con las que estamos trabajando, y que hay que fortalecer a lo que ya saben, ya tienen. Por ejemplo, que sí tienen muchos conocimientos sobre, por ejemplo, medicina, salud, como nutrición, así, pero que lenguaje, pero que se va perdiendo poco a poco. Así que para trabajar con las familias toca ir y bueno, más bien trabajar con lo que ya tienen y no llegar desde afuera y bueno, enseñar cosas que nos han que hemos aprendido en los países de los
que no es parte de la cultura de ellos, ¿no?
Sí,
claro,
sí,
claro.
Eso.
Because en inglés se dice that's the deficit model. Encuentras lo que no tienen y después tratas de llenar con cosas que vienen de afuera que tal vez no les conviene, que no es parte de las enseñanzas de ellos, ¿no? So going forward, looking to the future, because this is like the end of the study and you're going to leave and then go back to Germany and analyze these things. And so going forward, what else do you want to see yourself doing? I mean, you're going to get your PhD hopefully soon, and then you're going to wrap up this study. But what else would you like yourself doing? Do you see yourself coming back? Other things that you want to study? Other things que te interesa? Things that are like, you know, questions you have or things that you want to look into?
I'm not sure yet whether I want to come back as an investigator. I like investigation, but it's a different role. I came from a German university, which is Münster, and with like the plan set, like things that need to be done. And as I explained before, I had this connection to Ecuador before. So the past 2 years, I came here for work, which is a completely different thing to do. And
right.
At times it you rush through the day or have a lot of things to do, and that's interesting. It's a new way of spending time here, and I like it. It's very interesting, but I'm not sure yet whether I want to come back next time with a little bit more of tranquilidad.
Claro.
More time to just breathe and learn.
Just to be a person.
And be part. I mean, to investigate in a way that they teach us in Germany is not so very much be part of. Well, anthropology, be more that, be part of the culture. But psychologists often work in a different way.
Right.
And maybe I would like to come back and learn Kichwa and live and just be part of the whole thing and not
participate
more than this time that I was. Yeah, I learned a lot, but I was not always being part of. But as well, like observing, bring cameras and all this. The whole thing of bringing cameras to a family, to an indigenous family, is a strong thing to do.
So it's kind of obtrusive, right? It's like coming into someone's house and filming them what they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm really looking forward to analyzing the data, and I'm very thankful. But I think it's always good to be critical of the whole process of doing research in different countries. And so, yeah, we are still discussing the whole project.
What you've learned and what you do differently, right?
Yeah. So to sum up, I'm not sure whether I want to come back as an investigator or whether I want to come back and just be part of
a community,
the community. But
you know what I wanted to say to you, since I've known you, and the first we talked about this project you were doing, I was always been fascinated. And talking to some of your colleagues, some of the women that you mentioned, I think it would be great for you to think about. Maybe you've thought about this. It'd be great to come back here and be an observer, just as a person, and then be able to write a book about things that you've learned and the things that you're learning and things you're seeing and the things that people tell you about medicine, about child rearing, and the pressures that they feel. Because living here, when I was talking to the partera, to the midwife, Marta, she was telling me about all the pressures from Western society, from mestizo society, from doctors who are telling them, don't talk to midwives, don't do this, don't do that. So really, I think that would be really fascinating for you to come here as a person who's learned about indigenous cultures and who can speak Spanish as well as you do, and even learn some Kichwa, to really be able to write about what is it you're seeing and the pressures that people are under as women, as families, as children, as the young people, because as psychologists, you notice these things, things that are going on. I think that would be really interesting.
No, it would be really interesting to not just write about, not just write scientific reports, but to as well write something about the experience, which,
I think in English they call that ethnography, which is a study basically about what you see and what's going on. It's more of an anthropological thing, but it's really interesting because, you're taking your psychologist's mind and you're just sort of turning off the scientific data gathering, and you're just observing and interacting with people and recording what you see,
Yeah, it would be a good practice to do.
I think you've got the Ecuadorian bug, as they say, the Cotacachi bug. This place has gotten into you, so I bet you can see yourself coming back, but like in a different role, like not so hectic.
Maybe.
Maybe. And what would you like to say to the gente that you have met? What would you like to say to las mujeres, las familias que has conocido, that they've impacted you personally or professionally? Because you spent time in their homes, you talked to them, you saw things, you heard things, and they told you things. And so what was it you'd like to say to them? Because a lot of them will be listening, a lot of them will have access to this program in español. Si quieres hablar en español, está bien, yo traduzco, ¿no?
Bueno, gracias por participar en este proyecto y por hacer posible que lo podemos realizar. Y también gracias por su confianza y por recibirnos en las casas de ustedes y de compartir más que nada con los estudiantes que han venido. Y bueno, les cuento que realmente hemos aprendido mucho y todavía estamos aprendiendo muchas cosas. Sí, así que gracias por participar y bueno, que ha sido un gran gusto para mí entrar en contacto y bueno, saber o llegar a conocer más sobre su cultura o su forma de vivir.
¿Vas a extrañarles, no? Algunas de esas cosas, un poco.
Seguro que sí.
Las buenas cosas, la buena comida, la buena amable, la gente bien amable, ¿no? En las comunidades.
Sí, súper. Bueno, mucha buena gente, sí, encontramos muchas muy buenas personas y como dije, estamos aprendiendo muchas cosas. Llevo estos recuerdos conmigo y bueno, con eso me voy.
Qué bueno. Gracias, Helen.
Here is our number, 291-5146. In other words, give us a call.
Great. And, Helen was just so knowledgeable, so interesting to listen to her. Muy lindo. And I want to thank her. And yes, anyway. So here's a great song from her, Chancha Via Circuito by Jardines. Check this out.
1. Un jardín comienza con una semilla y una visión alimentada con la luz del sol. Sigue así, amor mío, sigue así. Llega todo alrededor, tus sueños viven en mi cuerpo. Vida aquí, nada es justo, vida aquí. Te regalo el resplandor, amanece en el desierto. Quiero ir detrás tuyo, quiero ir. Comenzar la humanidad de otro planeta y universo. Corazón de paz, alma de lava, saliva de pan, colombiano sin ancestros. Estrofa 2. Un jardín de flores puras y amarillas. Tiene tu luz acurrucada en la raíz. Quiero ir delante tuyo, quiero ir, mostrarte mi camino de esmeraldas y diamantes. Corazón de paja, alma de lava, saliva de pan, colombiano sin recuerdos. Los jardines se iban nutriendo con el río Magdalena. Los delfines rosados que iban saludando con una tierra sonrisa. Yo quisiera ser como la brisa, para batir tus cabellos y meterme dentro de ellos para poder ver y escuchar tu sonrisa. De flores y amarillas.
Yeah, that was Chancha Via Circuito by Jardines. Thanks, Helen, for that selection. Man, that's really good stuff. And next up, finish off today's show with a little more music from Helen. This is called October by Medi Aminyon. Check it out. That was October by Mehdi Ameninion. And a couple other last thoughts is I just wanted to say one of the things Helen was talking about in Spanish, we didn't get a chance to translate, is that Western ideas, we don't need to bring them into Andean communities, and they have the knowledge, and we need to just work with them and strengthen what they already know. And also the interaction between the grandmas and raising of the children and strengthening the ties between the mothers and the children. And children, that's how they're raised in Andean communities. So I wanted to say that, and thank you for being here today. In other words, really fun show. Thanks, Macy. Thanks for the rain. Thanks for all the blessings. Next week, we'll have a really beautiful guest, young artist, local artist, Jorge Vinuenza, and look forward to talking to him in Spanish and learning about his art. Very surrealistic stuff. So tune in next week to In Other Words, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for listening to our program. In other words, we will see you again next Friday at the same time, 4 p.m. on Radio Publica Cotacachi, 93.5 FM.
Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore.